was planting these trees in a spiral pattern around it. Very typical land art piece. And it has the piece itself has a lifespan of 400 years, because this is basically the lifespan of the trees. And another international artwork by a well-known artist, Nancy Holt, Up and Under, was installed in the late 80s in an abandoned sand quarry. And also here we can see this kind of structure which is really kind of trying to mold the environment, using it as a material. And it's a large-scale land art piece. So the developments in the first decades of the 21st century, with this emerging new areas such as bioart and art and science, which I was talking before, brings up the question of how these historical and contemporary practices do relate to each other beyond their use of organic matter or beyond the use of the nature as a material. And then there is this theorist, Lucy Lippert, quite well known, and she points out that many of the early monumental land artworks would hardly be considered environmental nowadays. Also, I think this falls under this category as well, or possible, even acceptable from today's point of view. However, one can point to one clear similarity in the approaches of monumental land art and contemporary bioart. This similarity also makes these practices clearly differ from other traditional or established art forms. Here, instead of representing the existing world, these practices are actively constructing the world. And we see that here, and we see it also in bioart practices. But another way of seeing a connection between earlier and emerging contemporary practices dealing with the environment and technosciences is to review the changes in the environmental conditions and the actors in it from an ecological point of view. One can argue that the contemporary environment is the result of a massive change and is very different from the environment of the 60s and 70s where these artists actually were working. Not only the technology changed, but also the environment very heavily. And during the recent years, our physical environment has become increasingly informed by technology. Like most of you still remember the beginning of the internet and how the world looked back then and how it looks now. Not only in the way we interact or in the way we communicate, but also the very change in the landscape itself. And like every website has a material, physical representation, a server, a connection, also in our world. So this technology results in a hybridization of our environment. So one can observe an increase of material and technological infrastructures such as communication networks, machines with different grades of independence. We saw the drones also in the picture, a boost in communication, in data exchange of human and non-human actors within the global communication, but as well a rising technologically altered biological organisms. I'm speaking of GMO plants and animals. So it's not only more technology which goes into kind of inanimate matter, but also into organic. The pictures we can see here from a photographer, I really like this work. He's basically questioning our relationship to nature, what we consider to be nature. If we look at what we consider to be nature, it's mostly a national park. We go into a park area to experience nature. But these are the most artificial areas we actually have on our planet. They are trying to be kept confined, not changed. And all around everything is changing. Don't get me wrong, I'm very much into habitat preservation and things like that, but I think to think about this concept is very valuable. So Erich also makes this kind of digital pictures where he is thematizing that. Basically here the Kitka River in Finland is put over the horizon under this glass bubble structure. But here basically you see, if the image would be better, you would see that this hole basically endlessly continues and every Finnish boulder is stored in this bookregal. So this new hybrid environment I was talking about constitutes itself on the one hand by the technologically informed physical environment and on the other hand by a digital environment enfolded through the manifold interactions of the elements and actors. These include humans, non-humans, plants, birds, whatever, animals, and which are of biological, machine, or even mineral nature. When I say mineral nature, if we look at mineral actors which we introduce into our environment, then for example, something which is also discussed here heavily, but think about the permanent nuclear waste storage facility. There is a process going on, it is a mineral actor which over a very long period is able to act on the environment. So this hybrid environment brings forward this new ecology I'm talking about, in which the actors interact with each other in their environment through technological and non-technological means. And really important is that this, as I said already, that the biology is now, you're thinking about scratching your nose, right?
No, I was just thinking, it's amazing to give us full potential, three presentations in one. I was just amazed.
Okay.
But keep on. We are good.
Okay. So this is where I really want to point that we have basically, we introduced into this environment also techno-scientific biology, which is actors which are techno-scientific origin, but which are biological in nature. Yeah? Here we see like the drones I was talking about. They are actually produced by an artist from Slovenia, but it is a commercial project. It's called Marco, and we use them sometimes in Kipisiari. And this is a work by Laura Belloff, the fruit fly farm. It is a hybrid between a technological object, a pet, and a test. Yeah? Because here you have the fruit fly nest, but you don't see it here and here, but a hacked mobile phone camera is looking onto the nest, and you can send an SMS to the object, and you get the picture from the nest back. And the interesting thing is that in this work is that it's basically a sculpture which you can lend. Yeah? So when the artist is showing the work, then you go there and you have to take care about this fruit fly nest for a couple of days or as long as you want. And it's really interesting how attached one gets to these little creatures. Yeah? And they also stay there, yeah? Because they have their little nest there. This is where they put their eggs, so you also have to kind of keep this environment going. But an interesting kind of hint or analysis of this idea of the hybrid ecology gives us actually a very, at the moment, popular British philosopher, which is called Timothy Morton, and he's working this object-oriented ontology philosophy, which is very popular at the moment. And he introduces this concept of hyper-objects to describe objects that are so massively distributed in time and in space that they transcend the spatio-temporal specificity. And as examples, he gives, for example, styrofoam or plastics, which we distributed already around the globe. You find them everywhere. Or for example, radioactive plutonium, which we distributed through surface nuclear explosions in the 50s, 60s and 70s through all our environment. So these are massively distributed and also they're propagating through time also. Plutonium is a very long half-life time, so it will stay millions of years also there. And it's side products. And so modern attempts to expose nature as a construct, which we have to get rid of to develop a real ecological thought. And here comes also this difference between the idea of the natural park and habitat protection. Yeah? He says that putting something called nature on a pedestal and admiring it from afar does for the environment what patriarchy does for the figure of a woman. It is a paradoxical act of sadistic admiration. And the concept of the hybrid ecology, which we try to work out, gives the possibility to rethink the general popular concept of nature as natural, untouched, or as protected environment. So one question could be, is what we consider to be nature actually a highly artificial product, or the remains of a romantic idea which is still with us? I'm almost done. So, two projects which we are in at the moment, trying to focus on that very much. The one is a project which is called Techno-Ecologies, and another one which we start with hybrid matters. And they are addressing this complex relationship between human, technology, and environment from a perspective which is, I think, captured very well by Erich Luitenberg's word, and he says that technology can no longer be understood as an alterity, as the otherness that stands in opposition to biological and social relationships. Going about our regular practices of everyday living, we inhabit increasingly complex technological environments that have become incomprehensive, extremely diversified, and at the same time infinitely malleable. I think I leave it here.